Today I'd like to talk a little bit about recommendations and references. So let's start with recommendations. Typically, recommendations are being sought when you're applying to graduate school, when you need to have someone write on your behalf. Not so much on the job search side, but when you are applying to graduate school or a fellowship or a volunteer opportunity, what I want you to think about is recommendations are something that you're asking an individual to do. So you want to make sure that 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time that you schedule time to have a clear conversation with them. What are you applying for? Why are you applying for it? Make sure they have an updated resume, cover letter, essays that you're writing for the fellowship or the graduate school professional opportunity. But you also want to be really clear with the recommender what work you need them to do in their letter. So I will often write dozens of letters each year for students. And sometimes a letter of recommendation for the same student, but they'll be applying for different opportunities. And in each of these opportunities, my work for them might be to focus on their leadership or their growth or how they've managed multiple projects. But as the individual seeking the reference or the recommendation, it's really incumbent upon you to make sure that individuals such as myself know what work their letter of recommendation is doing in the context of what you're applying for. Second, it's really important that you make sure that you're communicating with them in advance of the deadlines. And it's really your responsibility to make sure that they are on schedule to do that with gentle reminders, phone calls, emails, and no individual will mind if you gently nudge them along the way. If they've agreed to say yes, they may get busy, so just stay on top of them and manage that relationship. This is partly managing up when you're working with a recommender or a colleague. Second is really important to, once the application, you've submitted your part and they've submitted their part, that whether it's 6 weeks or 3 months, that you follow up with them and debrief them on what has happened with the process. Were you admitted? Were you not admitted? Are you choosing the opportunity? Are you not choosing the opportunity? So that they are able to move forward and be part of your ongoing team to support your future. And you can debrief with them. And I want you to think about that the individuals that you're talking to about your references and recommendations are relationships that you're cultivating now and maybe for the next decade, right? Because your relationships change with individuals over the time. And even if you haven't been in touch with somebody who's written a reference for you lately or a recommender, always good to check back with them 6 months or a year later so that they become part of your ongoing sort of network and community of advocates and champions. As someone who's given a lot of recommendations over the years, those individuals who remain in touch with me are, I'm much more able to sort of help them in the future, but also the relationship might change. 5 years ago, I might have written a letter of recommendation for someone. Today, they may not need that. They might need a reference for a new job, or they may need an introduction or just some advice. So when you're in college and recently graduating, people will write letters of recommendation for you, but those people are part of your network. So continue to remain and stay in touch with those individuals to keep them updated. In terms of references, the same pattern applies. You might be applying for a job and they might list 5 or so references. When you put someone's name on a list that they will be a reference, make sure that they know about that ahead of time. Sometimes the job process will move quickly and you'll find that someone has called me and I haven't quite known that they're applying for a specific job. So I have to be really creative when the phone call comes in. You really never want to surprise a reference in that regard. Again, Ask them if they'll serve as a reference. Ask them if they can give you a positive reference and a positive recommendation. Make sure that they have a clear understanding of your current work, what you're applying for, and again, what work you need to do in that reference that you're providing for that individual. So think through how you communicate and how you build relationships with recommenders and references, and see it as a long-term relationship rather than a short-term relationship. Now, if you're listening to this short little video and you're early on in your academic career, new graduate student, new undergraduate student, you want to begin to cultivate individuals who you might need later to serve as a reference for yourself. Again, that's done genuinely and authentically with individuals, but you want to begin to think ahead of time, this is someone that I might be able to get a letter of reference from. And some schools have portfolios where if you earn a good grade in a project or in a mark, you can also get that letter of reference ahead of time. So understand your specific situation, but think about some of those general rules that we offered. It'll serve you well now as someone who is asking for references and recommendations, but it will serve you even better when you become an individual that is in a position to begin to offer references and recommendations for others. Have a great evening. Take care.